We are breaking out the champagne today. My latest book, How Doctors Build TrueWealth, is in production now. In this episode, I'd like to share with you what this book is about, why it took almost 4 years to get it into your hands, and last, how you might be able to leverage this book to attract, engage, and serve more doctor clients. Welcome to the Engaging Doctors podcast. If you are a financial advisor who wants to accelerate your business growth by attracting, engaging, and serving more doctor clients, you are in the right place. I'm Dr. Vicki Rackner, your host. I'm a retired surgeon who has spent the past 15 years helping financial advisors crack the physician code and reach the doctors who want and need their help. I have an interest in doctors and their relationship with money. I've interviewed hundreds of doctors and summarized what I found in my books, The 9 Money Mistakes That Doctors Make, and The Myth of the Rich Doctor. Let me begin with a 4-year saga about how this book came into being. I started writing this book as a response to the epidemic of despair among physicians during the COVID pandemic. I wanted to offer a hopeful picture about what is possible. I define true wealth and burnout as flip sides of the same coin. A life of true wealth was the intersection of a life of purpose and passion and profit. I wanted to show doctor readers that earning, spending, investing, and protecting money were all connected. They were all a piece of a bigger puzzle. Really, the focus for this book was entrepreneurship, with chapters like how to attract people who pay you well to do the work you love, and how to put your money to work making money. I was pleased with the book, but before I released it, I ran it past physician beta readers. They did not like the book nearly as much as I did. So I went back to the drawing board. I challenged myself to come up with a simplified way to communicate this. That's when I created the TrueWealth engine. So think of the human heart pumping blood through the lungs where oxygen is exchanged with carbon dioxide, and then that oxygen gets pumped to all parts of the body. Now, consider that you have 2 basic resources in your life that you manage. You've got your time and you've got your money. Now, imagine this engine with 2 vending kinds of machines in it. The first vending machine I'll call the income exchange. This is where you put in chunks of working hours and get out chunks of money. Each dollar that comes out of the income exchange can be assigned one of 2 jobs. The first job is as a today dollar, to pay for this month's living expenses. The other is a tomorrow dollar. This is money that gets put to work making money through the second wealth exchange. So you insert chunks of tomorrow dollars into the wealth exchange, and once it gets up and humming, that means that money that's making money allows doctors the freedom to buy back their time. So in other words, instead of investing hours as work hours in the income exchange, they can convert them to play hours. So how can you optimize the health of this income machine and the wealth machine? Well, that's what I talk about in the second iteration of the book. The great news is that financial advisors loved this book. The not so great news is that doctors were not really as excited about the book as I was hoping they would be. And remember, I've already created a number of books that physicians absolutely love, and that was the standard that I wanted to hold myself to. So I went back to the drawing board for a second time to write the 3rd version of this book. As I was working on the manuscript, something was happening in the background of my life, and I'd like to share with you what that was and how it impacted the development of the current version of the book manuscript. So when my son was in college, I saw that something wasn't right. He was struggling. I chalked this up to the transition to moving away and being on his own. But he would regularly call me for my help, seeking solutions to his problems. For example, after his first midterm, he called me to tell me that there was a problem with the grading. I said, "Sweetie, that's an easy problem to solve. Make an appointment with your professor. Go in and just ask, why did I lose points?" And my son said, "No, that's not the problem. The problem is I think he gave me too many points and I want to give some back." He would ask for help with other situations just like that. He borrowed a buddy's old beater car to help somebody move. And he called me because he thinks that maybe in the parking lot he might have done something and there was a scratch on the car. I asked him to send me a picture of the car, and this was an old beater that was completely scratched up. Even if something happened, I have no idea how he would tell. Things like that just kept on happening. And then one day, my son casually mentioned to me that when he was on campus, he avoided a certain bridge because he thought about jumping. And that really stopped me in my track. He assured me that he was not actively suicidal, but with all these questions about this strange behavior that I've been seeing, I sent him in for a complete neuropsych evaluation. And on the basis of a PET scan, he was diagnosed with OCD. You could have blown me away with a feather. In medical school, I had learned that OCD is about people who organize things in lines and who were neat and tidy, and my son was none of those things. So I started digging in to learn about OCD. And here's what happens. When somebody like my son has OCD, it's like he has what I call the OCD monster sort of invading his brain. The OCD monster offers crazy thoughts. Now, all of us have crazy thoughts, right? But most of us just say, "Wow, what a crazy thought," and then we move on. But not somebody with OCD. They think, what if this crazy thought were true? The obsessions, these crazy thoughts, often are about something very bad that's going to happen. And somebody like my son cannot say, "How do I know that this is absolutely not true?" So they start treating this thought as if it is true. If I walk over that bridge, I'm going to jump. My son actually had a flavor of OCD called moral OCD. So a lot of his obsessions were about whether he was a good person. He also had a theme of harm, whether he'd harm himself or harm others, or maybe even harm another person's car. When he believed that the obsession might contain truth, this caused high levels of anxiety, 10 out of 10 levels of anxiety. My son once said he felt like he was going to die. In order to get temporary relief from this anxiety, people with OCD learn to perform compulsions. They do something to make the anxiety better. For my son's moral OCD, his compulsions included making confessions and offering apologies. He would get a temporary reprieve, but then the OCD monster would ratchet it up. The compulsions would get bigger and bigger. And ultimately what happens with somebody with OCD is that they can get totally trapped inside of their obsessions and compulsions. And this was happening to my son. I tried to get him help. I sent him to therapists who said they specialize in OCD. But many of them had never studied OCD, and they actually offered interventions that made OCD worse rather than better. In the meanwhile, I am sort of my son's safe place. I'm the person he's calling when he's in crisis. And to be quite honest, even as a physician, I felt completely overwhelmed by the task. Well, I finally decided that the cavalry was not coming. I was my son's cavalry. So I was going to have to dig in and try to figure out how to get my son freed from OCD. So I decided to become a certified life coach. And what that means is I became a student of how the brain works and how we create results in our life. And it turns out that the evidence-based treatment for OCD is learning how to witness the brain, learning how to witness these thoughts, understanding that thoughts create feelings. And in my son's case, the feelings that the obsessions triggered were extreme anxiety. So part of the treatment is learning to tolerate the anxiety, learning that if you didn't resist it, if you didn't fight it, it would just dissipate on its own. And third, he had to learn how to resist the urges to do compulsions, because after a while, these become habit. When my son learned how to do these three things, he got his life back. It was not easy, and he still struggles. If you asked him what he really wants, he would say, "Could you please just make the obsessions go away?" Because the entire cycle begins with a thought. Here's the important thing to understand. Even though most physicians don't have OCD, my son's experience offered a window into how the brain works. We all have thoughts. We all have thoughts about money. These thoughts about money create feelings. Maybe it's anxiety or enthusiasm. And with these feelings, we decide to do or not take certain actions. The actions that we do and do not take create the results in our life. So if you want to shape somebody's financial trajectory, the thing to do is start paying attention to thoughts. We can relearn thoughts. And if you want to really help somebody get to a different level, help them understand what their money thoughts are and help them embrace the kinds of thoughts that are going to get them to where they want to go. So in the previous draft of the How Doctors Build TrueWealth, I talked about, how to manage your time and how to manage your money, kind of like the dials on an Etch-a-Sketch. In this book, I help the readers understand that there are three things that they can control that will make a difference in their financial lives. There are three things that physicians can control. They control their time. What is the return on their time spent with their work hours? They can manage their money. How do they put their money to work making money? And how do they balance today dollars and tomorrow dollars? But most importantly, how can doctors manage their brains? How can they manage the thoughts and the reactions that they have that are so well described by behavioral finance and behavioral economics? I believe that the best way to up-level your life is to up-level your money mindset. And the first step in managing your money is managing your mind. So I really wanted to incorporate that into the book's message. Further, I wanted to offer this message in a way that doctors would understand. So I just took a page from my own playbook and decided that I was going to use a medical metaphor. Every day, doctors diagnose and treat their patients with a highly choreographed system. I thought, why don't we take that system, the history and physical, and use that as a process for doctors really understanding how they came to their current financial circumstance and what they could do to make the change. So if you think about the last time you went to the doctor, what happened? Well, first the doctor sat you down and asked, what brings you in today? What is going on? Where does it hurt? What makes it better? What makes it worse? What have you tried so far? And then they will ask broader stories. Well, are there issues in any other part of your life? Tell me about your family history. Tell me about your habits. Tell me about what your social situation is. In the first section of the book, we talk about the true wealth history. We begin with the true wealth story. Doctor, where does it hurt? What makes it better? What makes it worse? In the second chapter of this first section, we talk about the biology of financial choices. Your current situation is really a reflection of the choices that you've made up until this point. So, what kinds of factors impact the choices that you make? And then in the third chapter, we talk about your money identity. Each of us is born with unique fingerprints and hair color and eye color. So too, each of us has a unique way of responding to money. We respond to windfalls when money enters our life. We respond to times in which money leaves our lives, how we deal with losses. And we've got our own unique money mindset. So in this first part, we help doctors unpack how they got to be where they are now. All right, when you go see the doctor, the second part of your encounter happens in the exam room. The doctor comes in, your vital signs are measured, and the doctor does a physical exam. Well, in the second section of this book, we do what I call a true wealth financial exam. So in chapter 4, we take a look at the monthly cash flow requirements. I remind physicians that for every month that they live, they will have monthly bills. What are those bills today? Are there ways that they might want to modify their spending so that their spending aligns with their values and so that they get more joy from their spending? Next, I ask doctors to imagine this future life of true wealth and help them do a back-of-the-envelope calculation about, okay, what are your monthly expenses going to be when you have arrived? Next, we talk about the health of your income exchange. The income exchange, remember, is where you take chunks of working hours, insert it, and get out chunks of income. So I break down the elements of the income exchange. I talk about 4 different sources of income. Earned income, so money that you make by putting yourself to work. Investment income, money that your money makes. Lottery income, this is income that just kind of pops into your life. And fourth, there's found income, sort of the quarters under the cushioned chairs. Except that there are some significant ways that doctors can harvest money that's just leaking out of their system. So now they have a sense of how well their income exchange is working. In the 6th chapter, we talk about the wealth exchange. So what are the ways that you can put your money to work making money? How efficient is your wealth exchange? And how can you improve that? Those are the elements of the objective financial health. Then in part 3, we go on to the assessment. And this includes therapeutic tools. So when you see a doctor, the doctor will sit you down after the exam and say, okay, here's the story I heard you tell. Here's what I found on the exam or with the lab data or x-rays. And here is how I'm putting everything together. This is what may well be your diagnosis. All right, so this third section of the book is really about the assessment. How do you put everything together? In chapter 7, I talk about how to manage your brain so that you create better results. In chapter 8, I talk about making conscious spending choices, and I introduce doctors to some specific spending disorders, and I've given them medical metaphor names. And then in chapter 9, I talked about living as the true you, the essence of who you are, and moving from burnout to true wealth. Burnout means different things to different people, but I am seeing many doctors having a burnout that sort of looks like post-traumatic stress disorder, sort of PTSD light. And I believe that the reason that they have this is that they have an unregulated nervous system. The nervous system is just in fight, flight, freeze mode. And for whatever reason, it can't get back to regulation. It can't get back to balance. And doctors can learn skills to re-regulate their nervous system, either with their thoughts or by somatic-based therapies, body-based therapies, like intentional breathing. So by the time the doctor has gone through the content of the book, they now have a better understanding of where they are, how they got there, and where they want to go. Now, what I do not do is offer a therapeutic plan. I am not a financial advisor. You are. And I make an argument in the book about why it is that doctors should be working with financial advisors. And I tell the story of the day that I got a call from my mom. She said, "Honey, I'm fine, but I'm in the hospital. The doctors tell me that I need my gallbladder out. Can you fly out and do it for me?" Well, of course, it was very flattering to have my mother's trust in my surgical skills, but of course, I had to say no. There were some practical reasons. I didn't have a license to practice medicine in Hawaii. I didn't have privileges at that hospital. But the most important reason that I had to say no to my mother is that we physicians know that we should not treat ourselves or the people that we love because emotions can cloud our judgment. In a similar way, I remind physicians that when they manage their money, it will elicit emotion. It is always helpful to have team members who can provide the objectivity and judgment and experience to help them get the outcomes that they want. But imagine if a prospect arrived at your door and all of these elements were already in place. They could tell you, here's what I want. Here are the mistakes I made in the past. Don't you think that they would be even more motivated to listen to your therapeutic plan and then to go and implement it? This book was 4 years in the making, but I think it evolved exactly as it was supposed to. I believe that this is going to be a powerful tool. This book is in production right now. So, how could this book help you? Well, I have seen the power of the book, The 9 Money Mistakes That Doctors Make. Many financial advisors are giving away this book as a yummy treat to build relationships with doctors. Now you will have another yummy treat that you can give away. Further, if you want to elevate a doctor's experience with you, you will have the option of creating custom versions of this book in which your name goes on the front cover, your picture and bio goes on the back cover below mine. I will help you write a foreword and an afterword with a call to action. So now your name is on the cover of a book. Doctors are going to see you differently once that happens. You're going to see yourself differently once that happens. I am also exploring some other ideas, and I would invite your feedback. What I'm thinking is creating an online course that will walk doctors through the steps of the TrueWealth way, this whole process. So this is a course that you could potentially license for your doctor prospects and clients. I could even give you the scripts so that you could create your own videos. So I just ask you, would there be any value in that kind of thing for you. Next, I am thinking about expanding the Cracking the Physician Code course to include this TrueWealth Way content. So the focus of this course is really about how to acquire more doctor clients. However, I believe that the onboarding process is important. Further, the best way for you to get more referrals from your existing doctor clients is to help them get measurable results. I believe that the TrueWealth Way will help make that happen, so I'm thinking about including that in the Cracking the Physician Code course. I am considering including a credentialing process, so people who successfully complete the course and maybe go through some sort of certification program could potentially be certified as a TrueWealth Way strategist. And I'm even thinking about allowing financial advisors to have a listing in my website for doctors, my Thriving Doctors website. So I invite your thoughts about any of these ideas. The book is about to come out. I can't make an exact promise now, but I will certainly keep you updated. In the meanwhile, please consider some of the ideas that I've shared. The ideas that managing the way that your clients think about money makes a huge difference, and help them avoid the kinds of mistakes predicted by behavioral finance and behavioral economics can lead to some very different results. Last, consider approaching client onboarding as a special kind of history and physical. Use that medical metaphor. Again, I invite your thoughts about all of this. I want to thank you for your listening ears. I very much appreciate your commitment to helping doctors achieve the financial freedom to do what they want to do when they want to do it. I'm here to help you do just that. I'll see you in the next episode.